Thank you and welcome to the Patriots 300 level podcast. My name is Eric. I'm joined by my co-host Kevin. Welcome back for our 31st episode this week, where we'll be discussing the Patriots 2022 draft class and some news around the NFL. As a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Pat's 300 level pod for up-to-the-minute updates and commentary on news of the day. So Kevin, this is Patriots just had their draft last week and weekend. Hopefully they need to have a good draft class if they want to keep up in the AFC and the NFL and start progressing the next couple of years, taking those next steps. What was your overall thoughts on the draft class?
I think this is a very it's not like a very sexy draft class for the Patriots. Yep. I think they got good football players. And I think they're gonna have a high floor for these picks. I don't think there's really many low floor players that they picked. And I think maybe their ceilings aren't going to be as high, but possibly they still could be. Look at even the top two picks, even really top three, where they can have some really good football players. I still think I understand the pick of Cole Strange. I'm not a big hater on it. I was saying to you, I'm not sure if it was the podcast or right during the draft, that there's three positions that you cannot draft in the first round. One is guard,
yeah.
Two is special teams, and then three, I can't remember what the third one is.
Quarterback?
Oh yeah, probably quarterback, because they have one. I said anything else would probably make sense. And well, they draft the guard. But from everything that we've kind of seen about him so far, looking at his film, looking at his numbers, pretty good athlete. He's going to be a really good guard. Again, could you get a really good guard in another round? Possibly. But he's going to be a solid player for them. I think they wanted to make sure that they take someone that's going to do well, and not have that. Is he not going to play well? So I think it was a pretty safe draft. And I say the biggest surprise was drafting a guard kind of overall in the first.
Yeah, I didn't hate the pick at all. The more I learned about him, the more I liked it. But at first, my just initial reaction was I couldn't remember who the hell Cole Strange was.
Yeah.
I know we texted. I don't know if I texted you or you texted me saying, who the hell is that?
Mm-hmm.
But I know some people are hating on the trade back. Bill always does this. He doesn't like talent. That's what Tony Maz was saying because he's an idiot.
Yeah.
But you're trading back and getting good value. You're a team that you're not there yet to compete in the AFC, to compete in the NFL. You need to add talent. How do you do that? You get more picks in the top 100, top 120 to get those players to have more talented players. So you move back 8 spots and you end up drafting someone that you're probably going to draft at 21 while picking up those 2 additional picks. So I thought that the value they got for that was pretty good, a 3rd round and a 4th rounder. I do like the pick of Cole Strange. Everything I've seen of him reminds me a lot of Logan Mankins. And Logan Mankins similarly was, after he was drafted in 2005, I still remember Mel Kiper being baffled by the pick, saying, Logan Mankins, I had him going in the 5th round, and they picked him at 32 in the 1st round. So Bill has always had a great track record of drafting offensive linemen. So I think based on everything, this is going to be a good pick. Could you have I know some people are saying he's supposed to go in the 3rd round, 4th round, 2nd round, but at least what we heard afterwards, I don't know if it's just conjecture or just speculation after the fact or hindsight 2020, but some people were saying that they heard that he might go in a team in the 40s was interested. Some other people were saying Texans were interested at 36, I believe. So you never really know if there's someone you really like. You could trade back and still get them like they did with Duggar. They traded back from, I think, 22 to 37 and still got him. But if it's someone you really like, why take that risk if you're not sure he's going to be available where you're picking next?
Yeah. And then
I think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, just the other thing, if you look at who was available at 21, was there any really surefire pick that was going to be a top end talent in the 1st round? And I think really the only person you could say was Lloyd at the linebacker.
I'd say Wyatt too. I really like Wyatt, but
yeah. But with Lloyd, the way their linebacker class is, and they clearly showed it with this draft, they don't think
Yeah.
they need anyone there. And we said the names last time. They've got a whole plethora of players, and they're not going to have enough time to play even all the people they have now, based on how much nickel and sub packages they do. So they don't really need that position. The NFL's kind of going away really from relying on those linebacker positions.
Yeah.
So other than really him, and I know you said Wyatt, but other than that, everyone else has their question marks. McDuffie, is he too small?
Yeah.
Elam, I don't think he's the greatest first round kind of cornerback.
Yeah.
The edge rusher, Johnson, doesn't really fit the scheme that the Patriots play. So a lot of them had question marks. So you could definitely see why they want to trade back. They got two pretty good picks, and they made some good picks with that. I think that one of them ended up being the trade back afterwards into next year, but that's going to end up being a really high third round pick.
Yeah.
So they
essentially trading a third rounder for a fourth rounder and essentially a late second, early third the next year, because the Panthers are probably going to suck.
Yeah. So a pretty good draft. And I think just the other thing I just want to hit on for my overall takeaway is just looking at these players. It's a big change really from kind of how they've drafted in the past. And I think I texted you this too, and we've tweeted out where this isn't like as Pitchbot had tweeted a mock draft, a friend of Bill draft. This really had pretty no friends of Bill except for I think Jack ASU. I know he at least had a friend over there before, but
is ASU's head coach Herm Edwards?
I don't remember. But anyway, this wasn't a friend of Bill's kind of draft. The players that they took were other than Cole Strange, they don't really fit the mold of a Bill type of player for a lot of them, especially the corners. They're lately what he's been liking are those bigger, taller, faster corners, and these are a little bit shorter. And it just seems that there's more of an imprint from what Matt Groh has been saying, where, especially you want to get fast, you draft fast players. You want to get strong, you got to draft strong players. And they really fit that mold. And it sounded like he had a heavy influence in this. And just the other thing, looking at it, is there's this new analytic called RAS, which is Relative Athletic Score. And if you look at a decent amount of the players that the Patriots drafted, all have really good RAS scores. So what RAS is it takes the player's combine stats, height, weight, bench, the 40s, 20 splits, 10 splits, shuttle, 3-cone, vertical, broad. It puts it all into this algorithm, and it basically calculates a score on how athletic this player is compared to all the other players that played the position before. So you look Cole Strange, 9.95. That's ranked 7th out of 1,300 guards from 1987 to today. So looking at that, and then you have Tyquan Thornton, 8.55, and we'll get into these players a little bit later on. Pierre Strong, 9.35, and even some of the undrafted players that they have with Cody Russi, 8.75. Brandon Schooler, 9.78. Just really good athletes that they're drafting, and they're kind of going away from that more football sense of they got to be really good football players to we need some really good athletes just because the game's getting faster. At least it's good to see that they're kind of trying to mold with the times.
Yeah. And then I think another thing that kind of stepped away from their historic thing is along with them not going with friends of Bill is they didn't really go with a lot of big schools. They went with a lot of smaller schools and players that are 5-6 year seniors where they played a lot, and because of that, like you said, they have a higher floor because you might not have that same high versatility, but they're a safe bet. You know that based on their production, even though it was against lower talent, they made the most of it. Cole Strange at Chattanooga, Thornton at Baylor still is kind of a big school, but it's not like the biggest. And then 4th round, South Dakota State, Western Kentucky, South Carolina, Northwest Missouri. So you got a lot of guys that played a lot that are in that Kyle Duggar, Matthew Judon, Malcolm Butler type roles where they play smaller competitions but played well. So I thought that was just another takeaway. And they were older players because of COVID. You were able to have an extra year of eligibility. So you have a lot of players that you're drafting at 24. They're more mature. They're more well polished versus these 19, 20, 21-year-olds.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Any other takeaways you want to get into before we kind of break down each of these picks?
Yeah, I think just the one takeaway, then one surprise. One takeaway that I think Mike Reese was the first that mentioned it, that afterwards I was like, oh wow, that makes sense, is Bill kind of, one thing that he did follow his precedent is he drafted someone to at several positions as a possible replacement for next year, not this year, but with next year in mind. So Tyquan Thornton, for instance, second round, he seems logically he's going to be the replacement for Nelson Aguilar, similar type player. Marcus Jones in the third round, slot corner, realistically. So Nelson Aguilar's contract is up after this year. He could, Marcus Jones could be a replacement for Jonathan Jones, whose contract is up after this year. In the fourth round, Pierre Strong, who seems similar to Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, very fast, but Damian Harris's contract is up after this year, so he could be Damian Harris's replacement, or Stevenson takes Harris' spot, and then Pierre Strong takes Stevenson's role. So that's just another thing that kind of kept with that mold and methodology of Bill. And then just my biggest surprise, absolutely shocked about, is Bill went into day 3 of the draft with 7 picks. 4 in the fourth, or 3 in the fourth, 3 in the sixth, 1 in the seventh. He didn't make a single trade on day 3 of the draft, which was just my biggest shock.
Yeah, that was one thing I was surprised they took all those players where I thought they would be moving up a lot more, just because usually they don't hold on draft that many people, but they had a lot more kind of roster spots they could fill this year than they did last year too. So they had
I was thinking either trade up or trade back to next year.
But the other thing too is you have to have another team that's willing to do that. So
only he traded up to 179.
Yeah. All right, so we'll get into that. All right, so going into the first round, the Patriots, like we said, we won't spend too much time on this, drafted Cole Strange, traded out of 21 to 29, 94, 121. I think a pretty solid pick for that.
Yeah, that's more value than the Jimmy Johnson trade value thing indicated that would have been to get up to 21.
Yep. So I think we kind of talked about this one at nauseum, so I think we kind of skip into it. Second round, they traded up with to the Chiefs, 54 and 158 for pick 50. They drafted Tyquan Thornton at Baylor. This has been, I think this pick is really the chance to kind of make or break this kind of draft. To say, because we know, and everyone's saying, and even the people bashing the Cole Strange pick, they always preface it with, well, even if he is a really good player, I know the guy's a good player, but it still doesn't matter. This guy could be a Hall of Famer and it was still a bad pick. So everyone that's doing it admits the guy's a good player and he can play. He's going to have a 10-year career in the NFL. So their next pick, they really need to hit on this because they haven't always hit on second rounders, and they need to develop a wide receiver with Mac. They don't have. He's going to be the only wide receiver that's signed past 2023. So they need to get someone on the same page with him, and he's got really all the intangibles. He's extremely fast. Even though his cone and shuttle time weren't that great, he plays a lot quicker than his times were.
Yeah, he has a very fast release.
Yeah, people complain about his hand size. From what I've seen on the tape, he doesn't have an issue with grabbing balls. He's a smaller frame, but he does like to go up and fight for the ball. He's not kind of a timid wide receiver, and I think he could be pretty good in this the scheme that they have. Just be interested to see how he does. And I think if he's really good and lights the world on fire, this is going to be like an A+ draft. So,
no, I agree completely. I think at the time, I even just now, I think he's the only one in the top 4. Him and I go with Jack Jones are the only ones I could see being bust. It's tough to say a 4th round pick is a bust, but just because I don't see any way Cole Strange isn't at least a solid starter. Marcus Jones, from everything, he's small, but to play slot corner. He seems it's just like this pick. Bill has never really drafted wide receivers well, and just him being a fast guy, I'm hoping it's not another Bethel Johnson type or Chad Jackson type pick, and I don't think it will be. We'll have to wait and see. But the thing I'm most interested in seeing is how he takes the field this year, where he's going to take that spot from, because in front of them they already have Jacoby Myers, they have Nelson Aguilar, and they have Kendrick Bourne. So if you're going with 4 wide receivers, yeah, you go with him. But if you're going with 2 or 3, I don't see him getting on the field ahead of Jacoby Myers or
Aguilar.
Or I could see him Aguilar possibly, but I think at least at first Aguilar is going to take the field first. Is he going to be able to, since they are similar players, is this going to make Aguilar expendable where you trade him? Granted, it might be tough to find a suitor that takes his contract, but they kind of are the same players. So are you going to have both of them on the field at the same time?
Yep, that's a big point. And something I was going to say, where if he does show you enough, does that mean Aguilar is going to be traded? Because there's not really room for everyone on here, and he's a second round pick. As Matt Groh said before the draft, you really expect the first three rounds to be productive in their first year. And he can't be productive if he's not playing. So there has to be a way. Or maybe does this mean that Jacoby Myers is more expendable? He's got only 1 year left. Is that a little bit more palatable for another team at 3 or 4 million or whatever it is than Aguilar? And maybe he's more expendable, even though he was probably Mac's favorite target last year. That's just something to kind of think about. But it should be really exciting to kind of see what he could bring to this team. And hopefully something good, and hopefully it's not another Bethel Johnson.
Yep.
Next pick, 3rd round, drafted Marcus Jones, Houston. I think this is overall a slam dunk pick from everyone that's graded this draft. Really good slot corner, really good punt and kick returner, elite really in those areas. And again, if he doesn't have a RAS score because he didn't test out in the combine, but extremely good athlete, and kind of plays bigger than he really is. He's tiny. He's what, 5'8", but it seems like from everything I've seen on the tape, he plays a lot bigger than that size actually is.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's what I've heard too. Is my only concern when I saw the pick is that he is really short, but in the slot, you're not expecting him to cover 6'4" guys. So he has the speed to stay with fast slot wide receivers. So I think it's going to be a good pick. What everyone's saying, it seems like it's going to be a good pick. And you have had short cornerbacks in the past. Ellis Hobbs, who I know neither of us were big fans of, but he was a serviceable cornerback, and he was 5'8". So it's not ideal, but for who he's going to be guarding, you don't necessarily need to be 6'1", 6'2".
Yep. Going on next, 4th round pick.
We can talk about just the trade quick when they traded 90. We talked about it briefly, but the 94th pick, which we got from the Chiefs when the Chiefs traded up from 29 to 21, we traded that to the Panthers for a 4th round pick, 137, and then a 2023 3rd round pick, which you're picking right at the end of the 3rd round. That I know the drafts value markers say that a 3rd round pick this year is equivalent to a 2nd round pick the following year, just because of that. But you're essentially moving up about 20 to 30 spots, because the Panthers aren't going to be good next year unless something drastic happens. But theoretically, you could be picking at 70 where you're trading 94. So you're moving up 24 spots. So I love the pick. And then you picked up a 4th rounder too.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds, I think we both agree this is a really strong trade for that. And you even look at the trade that happened afterwards. They got nowhere near the same pick in this current year. So I think that was a really good trade. And then now going on to the 4th round pick, there were 3 4th round picks. One of them, again, like we said, was that trade from the Panthers pick. First was at 121. They drafted cornerback Jack Jones out of ASU. With him, I think he could be one of those scenarios where that's that JC Jackson pick. He fell a little bit because he had a bunch of off-field issues He was suspended from one of the teams. He had a burglary incident where he broke into a was that Panda Express at 3 a.m. But he's a really good ball hawk, is what everyone's saying. Good man-to-man skills. And hopefully this is one of those instances where he fell a lot due to those character issues. And maybe they get him in the right frame of mind. They did do a lot of time with him, and they had the in-person interviews with him. They spent a lot more time with him than some of the other picks. So hopefully they did their due diligence, and they're going to actually get someone that's going to kind of be a steal just based on how they dropped because of their personal issues. Any other thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think he's someone that it's low risk per se, because I mean, he does have those off field issues where if it happens again, you can just cut him. Granted, it is a 4th round pick, but he's someone that could be high ceiling just because he was a 5-star recruit out of high school, one of the best cornerbacks in his recruiting class, went to USC, and then due to those off field issues, ended up going to ASU, and then fell in the draft a little bit because of it. But he's someone that, like you said, could be like JC Jackson, where he's able to, it seems like he's been on the up and up the past few years. And if he's able to stay with that, if he's able to get in the right system, might be able to excel.
And just the other thing with him, though, again, he's not one of those prototypical corners where he's not the biggest guy. He's 5'10", 177 for his weight, only had 11 bench reps. So pretty kind of small guy. But
also him along, I've heard the same things similar to Marcus Jones, where he plays bigger than his size. The two lightest weight wise players that Bill has ever drafted is Marcus Jones and then Jack Jones. But on tape, at least, they play bigger than their size. They're not afraid to avoid, or they're not afraid of contact. They look for it, which is something you don't really see from people that size, that light.
All right, moving on. Pick 127, running back Pierre Strong, South Dakota State. What were your initial thoughts on him?
I really like this pick. I think he's going to be a stud. He seems like the typical running back that the Patriots always find in the mid rounds. Damian Harris from Andre Stevenson. He's fast. He's faster than both of them, I believe. He played at a smaller school, so against not as great competition, but he was productive. And one thing I saw a scout say is he's one of the best running backs he's ever seen at blitz pickup, and that's including running backs in the NFL. So in this Patriots offense, that's something that you have to be good at, or else you're going to get the quarterback killed. And that's something that they stress. That's part of the reason why Andre Stevenson, along with him fumbling a little bit early on, part of the reason why he didn't see the field is at first last year, he wasn't really great in blitz pickup. But I really like this pick. I think that Harris is going to be gone at the end of next year if he's not gone before this year. And I think that Pierce, you're not going to see much of a dip because of having Strong and Stevenson.
Yep. Yeah, I think this is a good pick for kind of two things. One would be replacing Damian Harris, because as we know, giving a running back a second contract is never a great thing unless it's a low money or mid money short-term thing. As much as I love Harris, but is he going to try and go for agency and get like a bigger contract and see if someone's going to pay him that money? So if not, then maybe they might resign him, but this gives them some protection if he does leave. And it also gives them protection with James White. It doesn't sound like he's going to start the year on the team. He'll be on PUP at minimum. That's even if he does even play. He may end up retiring if it gets to training camp and he still can't do it. He's still the other day was saying that it's not where it needs to be yet. So
yeah, they did give him a 2-year contract too. So it might be that they give him this whole year off to try and get back for next year and see if he's able to get back. Great. If not, he can retire.
So that could be a thing, but this gives kind of protection in both areas, especially because this guy's so quick and so fast. Not only
and
is
he's
fast,
he has a powerful running style too, similar to Stevenson and Harris.
So not only does he have a good 40-yard dash, but he's got a good 3-cone and shuttle time. So that's what they like to see for those quick, shifty players. Anything else on him?
Nope.
All right, so going on, one of the more not confusing to us because we predicted this was going to happen. More for the national media because they don't understand what Bill does every single time,
or they're just instigators trying to get.
It could be like a Ben Volen and thinks that Mac Jones' job could be in jeopardy. But we see this all the time between Jarrett Stidham, Damian, not Damian, Woody.
Rohan Davey is
Rohan
the biggest
Davey.
example. They drafted
Yeah.
him in the 4th round right after Brady won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Rohan Davey, Ryan Mallett, all those. The list goes on and on.
Jacoby Brissett, Jimmy
Mhm.
Garoppolo, Kevin O'Connell,
Yeah.
Matt
But the list
Gutierrez.
goes on and on. And
Yeah.
Bill has stressed this before. You need to have protection at the backup quarterback spot, because if something, God forbid, happened, you need someone that can play. And we know right now the two players on the team behind Mac Jones cannot play.
Yeah.
You have one guy, Brian Hoyer, who craps his pants the second anything pressure happens, and then Jarrett Stidham's out there like a chicken with his head cut off and has no idea what's going on when he's out there, and he's just happy to be there most of the time anyway. So
yeah, and we saw this too, where in 2001, it's not really a great example, but Bledsoe got hurt. Brady came in and they ended up winning the Super Bowl because they had a capable backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But even just not this past year, but the year before, Joe Burrow got hurt. And then Bengals didn't have anyone behind him. I know that the Bengals weren't really in that spot to succeed that year, but if something happens to Mac Jones this year or next year, God forbid, you want to have a capable person behind him that can, even though it won't be the same, can at least be a game manager and take up where they were leaving off, even if it's a slightly worse production.
Yeah, and from all accounts, this is, of all the quarterbacks in this draft class, this was the most Patriot type of quarterback that was out there. Quick release, not the strongest arm, really good in the pocket, and pretty much like a Mac Jones light type of player. Not
extremely productive too. He set all kinds of records. Granted, he was at Western Kentucky, but
but I think a pretty good pick by having a backup quarterback, because who knows what's going to be on this team after this year. Anything else on him, or we want to move on?
No, the only thing that some of the media was up in arms about is that they took him over some of the other quarterbacks that were remaining. But this is a crappy quarterback class to begin with. So if there is someone you like, might as well go with them. Who am I to really say? I can't tell the difference between one. Like, I don't know enough of these quarterbacks to say that this is a good pick versus another. But it seems like all the quarterbacks, I'd be shocked if any of them are starters for more than 5 years in the league. So go with someone you think that might be good and see what happens.
Exactly. Moving on, 6th round, we'll try and get these out quicker just because it's not too much to talk about these guys in the 7th and undrafted. At pick 183, Kevin Harris, South Carolina. Again, pretty productive running back. I think he had an off year, I think, this past year, but had a really good year the year before.
He had 1,000 yards in 2020, but I believe he had an injury this year where he wasn't able to play the full year.
Yeah.
So that's why he dipped a little bit, but he ran for 1,000 yards in the SEC the year before.
So I think some people may question double dipping at the running back position. Again, I think without James White, and possibly if they trade Harris, this got him plus Strong help give some protection there for that. And again, Brandon Bolden left, so you do have that void there. And I don't think JJ Taylor is going to do anything at being 5'6".
Yeah, I think just the biggest question mark for me is going with the 2 running backs, because last year they had Brandon Bolden, but they didn't have 4 running backs on the roster at a single time. It was always 3. And right now, with drafting Pierre Strong, assuming there's no injury, you have your 3 right there. So, and you have JJ Taylor. He's probably going to be gone, but are they going to have 4 people on the roster? Are they going to get rid of Damian Harris? Or are they just using this as a redshirt year for this Harris, Kevin Harris, and hoping him take some reps next year? But it's the 6th round, so if it's someone that you think is very talented and might be productive, you might as well take him.
Yeah, and then just the other thing to say is they're not going to have that fullback position. So are they going to carry one more running back to replace that? So that could actually fit out where that everything may work out that way.
Yeah.
Next pick, Sam Roberts, 200. The defensive lineman, Northwest Missouri. This one, Zolak today was saying that they've got some internal thoughts. He could be kind of like a Barmore type of player.
I love this pick.
They really are high on him. I think you like him more just because he's a big Patriots fan.
No. I really do like that, but from everything I've seen, he played D2, so not against great competition, and that's part of the reason why he fell as far as he did. But similar to Kyle Duggar and Matthew Judon, who also played D2, but he was productive as hell. He's I believe a 6-year senior, 5 or 6 year senior, so super senior because of COVID. He had 5 blocked kicks in 4 years starting, which is insane for one player to have 5 blocked kicks. But very productive, very good tackler. Got some pressure, and I think that he's definitely going to make or I shouldn't say definitely, but I have a strong feeling he's going to make the roster and be productive. Like a Barmore, I don't think he's going to be that good, but like a Barmore or Jarvis Green type player.
Yeah, I think he's going to get some good reps out of that. And then again, another good find here. Chasen Hines drafted at 210, off another guard, which is a little confusing how many offensive linemen they've took. Both here and undrafted. But this guy's a big boy. He kind of reminds me a lot of Owenu, and he pulls really well at the guard position. So his lower body is very, very strong, and he's got some good good moves at the guard position. Again, he was a 6.57 on the RAS score, which about the top probably third of all guards in the last 3 decades.
Which is good for someone his size. He's a 6'3", 330.
Yeah, he's a big boy. So this could be another position where maybe he turns into like another Owenu. So it'd be interesting to see how that kind of really works out. And what does that mean for Win? Because possibly if they could possibly move Brown to left tackle, could they put Owenu at right tackle, put Hines at guard, and then put Strange at the other guard? So
yeah, or even Owenu at left tackle. I know he's better on the right side, but it'd be something you see.
Yeah. All right. 7th round, not really much to say. Andrew Struber. Some people have projected as a 5th round talent. Tackle at Michigan. More likely he's kind of another guard type of player, but how he is, I don't really have much to say on him.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say. One of my friends is a big Michigan fan, and he loved this pick, saying that he thinks he's going to be a really good player, and he's going to be a similar Michael Owenu type player who also went to Michigan. But it's a 7th round pick. Might as well just take people you think low risk, high reward. Yeah. So I don't know too much about him, but.
Yep. It's basically a lottery ticket. Undrafted free agents. We're not going to go through all of them. I think you want to go over a cornerback specific.
Yep. One that stuck out to me is Devin Hafford, cornerback from Tarleton State. He was the WAC Defensive Player of the Year, I think last year and possibly the year before, but at least once. He's a 6-year senior as well, played in 56 games, 6 feet, very productive, had 6 interceptions and 2 fumble recoveries this year. He seems like a typical undrafted free agent for the Patriots that ends up making the team just because they're a ball hawk. They're the first one in the weight room, last one out. So granted, we don't know much about these players, but based on everything I heard, I wouldn't be shocked if he makes the team just because of everything. He just reminds me a lot of what we've heard and seen with J.C. Jackson, Malcolm Butler.
One of the 2 guys I was going to talk about, actually there's 3, I'll do it really quickly. Offensive lineman Cody Russi and then Liam Shanahan. Both of them, again, that RAS scored really well on that. 8.75 for Russi, 8.9 now for Shanahan. Some really good kind of talks about how productive, especially Russi, I think, out of all of them. And
they gave him the most guaranteed or most biggest signing bonus out of all the undrafted free agents.
So with the amount of money given to him, like you said, is it more likely he may stick on? And what do they really see with that? Especially between him and Hines and all these players. And I don't know how they can have room for all these people, especially they got a Kajus, they've got Haran, they've got Ferentz, they've got Durant. So there's going to definitely be some movement there, but maybe they like all of these guys and maybe they got
and then Russi too. You don't have that traditional backup center as well. So one of them could make the roster as the backup center.
Yep.
And can play some guard.
And then just the other player, real quick, just be based on just his measurables would be Brandon Schooler. He had a 9.78 on RAS. He has a 4.43 40-yard dash. He has a 4.1 shuttle, a 6.71 three cone. Those are like Julian Edelman numbers. He played wide receiver, played safety at Texas. So just interested to see, based on how quick he is, could he be one of those slot receivers, that speedy slot that they're looking for? Or is that possibly going to go to Marcus Jones? It's just to see how he kind of fits in here, what they put him at, how he looks if they put him at wide receiver. And that's pretty much it. There is that kind of triple threat player.
I was going to go up on him. Just with Schuler too. Another thing with him is he's just another 6th-year senior. So this year we've seen the Patriots going with a lot of players that have experience. But just going on to who you're alluding to, Derek King from Miami. He's a quarterback that small, 5'9", about 195 pounds, but he's someone that is expected to be that wide receiver, running back, Ty Montgomery, Julian Edelman type at the next level if he makes it. He did have some experience. He played at Houston and Miami, had some experience playing wide receiver. He caught 61 passes for 520 yards. So he might be someone that he already has that experience at wide receiver, whereas Julian Edelman didn't. So he's someone that a lot of people have some high hopes of at that next level. They do have Ty Montgomery on the roster, and Perry as well, so we'll have to see, but he's just an intriguing name. And then just one more, got a mini camp invite. I doubt he's going to make the team, but University of Rhode Island alumni Kobe Tippett, who is Andre Tippett's son, he had a few, he didn't get signed as an undrafted free agent. He got a rookie mini camp invite, but he's someone that the Patriots, he met with the Patriots a few times during the pre-draft process. I think part of the reason why they invited him is kind of just doing Andre Tippett a solid of at least giving him a shot. But he's expected, if he does make it to the next level, he was a safety, but projected more to be a punt returner. So we'll have to see. I doubt he makes the team, but if he's a really good returner, then we'll have to see.
Yep.
And then one more, they did sign undrafted free agent rookie punter, Jake Julian from Eastern Michigan. I know that Jake Bailey had some issues last year. They didn't end up drafting Matt Araiza. So I wonder if my guess is this is just going to be competition and Jake Bailey will easily win the spot. But
yeah, that was just the other thing I was going to bring up. We did not successfully pick the right player that they're going to draft for the punter. And I still think
the Bills,
if the Bills didn't pick him, what would have Bill done? It would be really interesting to see what he would have done there.
Yeah.
I have a feeling based on how this draft went, I don't think he was picking him.
I don't think it was either.
Everything against what Bill usually does. And I think we'll talk about this later on in the next podcast or two. So kind of going on news around the NFL though. No trades, Jimmy G or Baker. There was news that one of the reasons why Jimmy hasn't been traded was teams were kind of off put by that shoulder injury, the surgery, just based on the time frame that's going to be. It kind of halted some of those trade discussions, and what's going to happen with Baker. And
then just before moving on Baker, another thing that's come out of 49ers camp the past couple of days is apparently sources are saying that the 49ers are extremely underwhelmed with Trey Lance. So part of it could be that they don't really want to move on from Trey Lance because they don't think he's ready next year to bring them back to the conference championship or Super Bowl.
Yeah. And nor would you want to move on for Jimmy if you didn't think that. So makes perfect sense. All right. And then DeAndre Hopkins suspended 6 games of PEDs, probably I would be guessing HGH based on having an injury last year.
Yeah.
And what is that going to do for the Cardinals?
Part of the reason why they traded for Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, where they knew this was maybe coming. They need another wide receiver threat because I don't think Carl Murray's that good. Yeah. So I think they just need more players for him. So it should be interesting to see how that helps. When is he suspended? Are the Patriots going to play him during that suspension?
Yeah.
It should be interesting to see.
Yeah, I was just going to say both him and we're playing the Cardinals this year and then also the Browns. So wonder if the Patriots get lucky both times where they don't have to go up against Deshaun Watson with the Browns and they don't have to go up against DeAndre Hopkins with the Cardinals. Probably with Patriots luck, they'll play both of them, but
but we shall see.
Yep.
I think that kind of wraps up this draft recap episode. Again, follow us on @Pats300level pod on Twitter and Instagram for up-to-minute news updates. We'll have a blog one day. And
one day.
Subscribe, rate, and review on Apple, Google, wherever you listen to your podcast, Spotify. And then also do that on YouTube as well. You can get the videos with us. And we'll maybe try and break down some of these players and kind of show some film with that too, if we can, and not get kicked off for violating any copyright. So, again, thank you, and we'll talk to you probably not next week or the week afterwards. I got some things coming up around these neck of the woods, but probably in 3 weeks or so. Just kind of recapping what's going to be going on. So. Talk to you guys next time. And again, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a nice day.